Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Bhagavatam stream. What is the Bhagavatam, you ask? Well, we all know about Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology is based on the Vedas. The most significant or important part of the Vedas is the Puranas. I hope the resolution will improve. And also I hope that we have audio. Yes, we do. And then of all the Puranas, the most important Purana is the Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam is the most important part of the most important part of the Vedas. Nigamakalpataro Kalitam Palam. And the Bhagavatam has 12 sections, and so far we've studied 4 of them. And so now those 4 are published. You can go to my website, victorcara.com, and go to the book section, and you can order those translations if you want to catch up with them or study them more slowly at your own pace, etc. And so now we're on the fifth part of Bhagavatam. And the first story, we're in the first story, which is about an avatar of Vishnu called Ṛṣabha, which means the best. So we've heard about Ṛṣabha's relationship to Brahma. He's the great-grandson, something like that. Brahma made Manu. Manu had as a child Priyavrata. Priyavrata's first child was Agnidra. Agnidra's first child was Nabi, and then Ṛṣabha was born to Nabi. And then last week we heard about how Ṛṣabha grew up, had this funny incident with Indra. Indra tried to deprive the kingdom of rain, so Ṛṣabha just made it rain. Got married to Indra's daughter, and then led this exemplary life for the citizens. Then he had all these children, 100 children with Jayanti, and they had grown up and they were educated, and he was traveling with them, or they were traveling, and they came upon an assembly where sages were educating people. So his kids are grown up, and that means that he's ready to pass on the kingdom to them and go into his third stage of life, which is the retirement stage. So he took this opportunity to kind of like say a final word to the kids, but also he did it at this place where there was tons of people already gathered, so that everybody could hear it and everybody could benefit from it. Remember, he's the king also. We did cover last week some of what he said, but I want to restart from the beginning of what he taught his kids at that place, because I improved the text quite a bit. It looks pretty low res on this screen. I apologize about that, but I'll be reading it. So yeah, also next week I'll be back in Japan with my regular setup, so I also apologize for this. Just this kind of a whatever camera, the built-in camera and all this junk, built-in microphone. Okay, so first of all, he started talking about 2 gates. He said, "My dear children, you are human beings. You don't deserve to chase the same pleasures that stool-eating pigs chase. Human beings should strive for divine goals, because such things reward us with tranquil clarity and infinite, effortless happiness. On the road of life, there are 2 gates. Those who pursue the goals of pigs walk through the gate of darkness. But the liberating gate welcomes those who pursue divine goals by honoring people who are equal-minded, content, angerless, affectionate, and appreciative of the good qualities of others." So the new thing that I brought in here is I have Bharata ask questions. Bharata is his oldest child, and the next story in Bhagavatam, which is twice as long as Ṛṣabha's story, is Bharata's story. So we might as well introduce Bharata a bit early. His eldest child Bharata asked, "You say we should respect great souls. Well, then how should we treat ordinary people?" Get it? Does it make sense what he's asking? Do you mean we should only respect great souls? So Ṛṣabha answers, respect everyone according to their merits. There is at least something respectable in everyone. Figure out what that is and respect them for it. Still, reserve your deepest respect and receptivity for great souls. This will lead you on the path through the liberating gate all the way to the Divine Master. So we covered this last week, so I'm not going to elaborate on these points because we elaborated them last week. I just want to show you the new format and get to the new content, and we'll elaborate on that. But I just want to add in here somewhere Ṛṣabha answered this text here. Ṛṣabha replied. Okay. Bharata voiced another question. You say we should not chase the pleasures that pigs chase. Do we? I think what most humans seek is much more refined than what pigs seek. Yes and no, Ṛṣabha replied. What most humans seek is categorically the same as what pigs seek. Yes, within that category, there are more and less sophisticated variants, but it is all in the same category. What category are you speaking of? Asked Bharata. There are two categories of pleasure, acquired and innate. Acquired pleasure, sorry, gotta edit a little bit. Acquired pleasure comes by acquiring pleasurable objects, usually for food, shelter, protection, and sex. Innate pleasure is our natural, innate state. We discover it when we are blessed to experience our true natures. Animals are generally confined to pursuing acquired pleasures. Humans also pursue that, but can and should primarily pursue the opportunity to discover innate happiness. So that's clarification. He clarified that in the text itself. What he means, like, you're a human, so you shouldn't chase the same pleasures as pigs. Well, we're not. We're not trying to sleep in the mud. Right? That's Bharata's reply. And he says, yes, you're not trying to sleep in the mud, but you're categorically chasing the same pleasures that pigs chase. Acquired pleasure. Why? You're a human being, you can discover your innate pleasure. That's what you should be dedicating yourself to. Okay? Hi, Renee. Hi, Ari. And managers. All right. So let's see what he says next. Bharata asks, can we not pursue both? Ṛṣabha answers, in a sense, that is what I've been showing you how to do for most of my life. Remember, that's what how he was living his life. By living a moral life, we pursue acquired pleasures in a way that develops character traits that later empower us to successfully pursue innate happiness. That's a very important point. Moral life, you might think that if you're living a religious life or a dharmic life, that you're pursuing both spiritual and material goals at the same time, and you sort of are, but you're not really. What we're doing when we do that is we're pursuing material goals, but in a way that enables us to be able to pursue spiritual goals when we do switch to that. Because we cultivate humility, we cultivate tolerance, we cultivate patience, etc., in how we're pursuing the material goals. So Ṛṣabha continues, but this is only a preliminary and indirect pursuit of self-realization. Eventually, you should recognize that one pursuit is clearly better for you than the other, and dedicate yourself fully and directly to it. Pursuing acquired pleasure is not good for us. Its intense desires are stressful on the mind. It is dangerous for our well-being, compelling us to abandon our duties when they are unpleasant. Why take these risks? It does not really benefit you in the first place. It benefits your senses, which are not exactly you in any permanent way. Sooner or later, you will have to stop pursuing acquired pleasures and give yourself fully to discovering your innate happiness. The pleasures available from sense objects are too immediate, available, and real. If we dabble in them, they soon dominate our enthusiasm and completely overshadow the long and initially doubtful quest to discover innate happiness. As much as we desire the sensual, that much we lack desire and self-discovery. As much as we pursue the sensual, that much we imprison our minds and our bodies. As much as we value objects, that much we shackle our mind to conditionals. As much as we lack love for the all-attractive, there is no release from any of this. This sudden mention of love seemed odd, so Bharata asked, "You say love is the key to escaping this cycle. Isn't knowledge the key?" My dear boy, Ṛṣabha replied with an empathetic smile, "Emotion easily distorts and destroys intellect. Have you not noticed that even scholars and wise gods can be completely swept away in the heat of sensual passions? Emotion cannot be outsmarted. It must become our friend. Love is much more powerful than knowledge. You can cultivate knowledge without developing divine love, but you cannot cultivate divine love without developing true knowledge. So not only is love more powerful, it also includes knowledge. Try to learn what you really are and what really benefits you. This knowledge will cause your love and emotions to flow inwards towards the all-attractive." All right, so that's the bit that we got up to the last time. So now we're going to start some new stuff. This section is called the knot in the heart. Categorically the same. Not in the heart. To illustrate the overpowering nature of sensorial pleasure. So that was the thing that he said. He said you can't really pursue both pleasures at the same time. Why not? Why not? Because it's just like you can't hear a quiet sound when there's a loud noise around. You can hear quiet sounds when it's very quiet, but not when there's a loud noise. Sense pleasure, in our condition, the senses are so much more real than the self to us. We're so much more accustomed and plugged into the senses, and we experience very vividly through the senses, and we barely experience anything without them. So the sounds that the sense produce is very, very loud. You won't be able to hear any other sound while hearing that. So to illustrate this, he presents a new analogy, the heart knot. The sexual bond between male and female, he explained, binds their hearts together, just like we say, tying the knot. This firm double knot serves as an anchor on which they establish a home and property, have children, acquire friends, and amass wealth. Their entire sense of self becomes determined entirely by these things. Their hearts and minds orbit this knot with the fierce momentum of all the efforts they have invested in it. If, for whatever reason, that knot breaks, the centrifugal force sends them flying wildly far, far away. So what he's saying is, when a man and a woman, he's just giving the basics. Of course, there's variations, but basically, when a man and a woman meet, when the man and the woman meet, that are the mates, when they mate, their hearts knot to each other, and that forms a strength, like a foundation. And then, because of that foundation, they can build So they build things like a house, children. They get a neighborhood, they get friends. They get things in their house, they get money, they get wealth. And they build, enough to fill up 25 albums, photo albums. So all this effort is going into the knot, to making it bigger and bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger. And the life is, Ṛṣabha is saying, depicting the life as orbiting the knot. It does. It does. Now, there are various ways that the knot can break. But when that knot breaks, it causes an extreme upheaval in the lives of the people that were tied to it. Just like if you were spinning a rock around the center and then the rope breaks, the rock is going to go flying. Now Bharata asks, is that good or bad? If the heart knot breaks, is that good for people or bad for people? Ṛṣabha is going to reply now. The heart knot is not a good thing, Ṛṣabha explained. It is a result of self-ignorance. You don't need to have this knot in the first place to have strength. Nor do you need to build things to find happiness. You don't need to acquire pleasure. So the heart knot itself is just based on an ignorant concept. So it's not a good thing. It is a result of self-ignorance, and it is the foundation of all karma. Still, if it suddenly and unintentionally breaks, people are thrown off center and lose their will to live. Breaking the knot intentionally, however, can send the person to a vastly superior state. In fact, they can attain an orbit around me in my realm. So Bharata asks, if the knot breaks, is that good or bad? Ṛṣabha says, it depends. If it breaks unintentionally, it's bad. Like if your marriage suddenly falls apart, then it's difficult. You lose your center, you go flying up, you don't know why you're living. What are you supposed to live for? You don't really know what to do. You lose your entire center. Or if various parts in the knot break even, it weakens the orbit and it creates a disturbance in the orbit, like if you lose your house or something. Even just that makes life so difficult. It changes the orbit. So when the knot breaks when you don't want it to break, it's very painful and difficult. Yet that knot is built on ignorance and the cause of all karma. So you do want to break this knot. So breaking the knot unintentionally, having the knot break on you is a painful experience, but breaking the knot intentionally is a very positive thing. And it has to be done in a responsible and positive way. Because we're talking about a dangerous thing here. You're swinging a rock around a circle. If you just let go of it, you're going to break a window, knock somebody's head in, poke an eye out, put an eye out. So you have to be careful about it. There's a system, there's a way to untie it without hurting anybody. And he says, actually, what can happen if the knot is untied correctly, then you'll still be cast off from that orbit. But you can regain an orbit around a superior object. You can obtain an orbit around me in my realm, Ṛṣabha says. Okay? Any questions about that? Let me know. Renee's feeling it. Renee's number one. She's got the number one crown today. So now the next section is about how you untie the heart knot. So Bharata asks, how can we intentionally untie our heart knot? I see 3 different ways of doing it, Ṛṣabha replied. If you've studied Bhagavad Gita, you might have a guess. But actually, he does not mention karma as a way of doing it. Gita does. So he says 3 ways, and he says 1 is by bhakti, which is devotion to divine. The other is by yoga, which is by practicing things that cause the knot to loosen. This could be karma, actually, karma yoga. And then by jnana, which is knowledge of how and why the knot is tied. So there's 3 ways: bhakti, yoga, and jnana. Devotion to the divine is one way of untying the knot intentionally. Yoga, or practicing certain things that loosen the knot, is another way. And jnana, knowledge, understanding the knot, how it got tied. That can also untie it. Now, Bharata says, can you give some examples of bhakti that unties this knot? We'll have Bharata ask one for each of these categories. Ṛṣabha replied, express love for me, the swan guide within you. This is really interesting. He describes himself. Remember, he's a Vishnu avatar. So he describes Vishnu as the self within the self, the guiding self within the self, the swan guide within you. If you remember the story of the swan, which I think comes later in this canto, doesn't it? It's a very interesting... it's either later in this canto or it was already in the 4th canto. But the story of the 2 swans is very interesting to keep in mind. Vishnu is describing himself as the swan guide. So what is an example of how you do bhakti to untie the knot? Express love for me, the swan guide within you, by regularly doing my deeds, regularly having conversation about me, associating with those whose hearts are in me, and celebrating my qualities. So regularly doing my deeds, mat karma. So that can be a type of karma yoga, doing deeds that you're supposed to do, doing deeds that Vishnu has ordained. So that means like doing your social duties. But mat karma can also be doing deeds for me, like collecting a tulsi leaf, something simple like that, collecting water and offering it to a murti, cleaning a temple, something like that. Teaching Bhagavad Gita, learning Bhagavad Gita, teaching the Bhagavatam, hearing the Bhagavatam. But that also bleeds, some of these things overlap. So the second thing is regularly having conversation about me. That's also a deed for me. But it's just mentioned separately because it's particularly important if you want to get enlightenment. Remember, untying the knot is basically getting enlightenment. If you want to get enlightenment by bhakti, but you don't want to have conversation about Vishnu, it's not likely going to happen. You know, who could even imagine it happening? So you have to discuss the object of love, otherwise the love for the object doesn't grow. So that's what we're doing in the Bhagavatam, really. We're doing both of these by listening to this Bhagavatam stream. Associating with those whose hearts are in me. That's another key thing. And celebrating my qualities, that's kirtan, guna kirtan. So having kirtan, that's like saying conversation about me, but it's more just like glorifying them, making poetry about them, or making art about it, making song about it. Those are examples that Ṛṣabha gave for how you would engage in bhakti to untie the heart knot. Next, Bharata asked for examples of yoga. Ṛṣabha replied, practice giving up thirsts, tolerating extremes, and perceiving the universality of suffering. For example, by ... So that's the summary of how you become enlightened by yoga. Practice giving up thirsts. Of course, literal thirst, but also means desires. You practice giving up desires. You practice tolerating extremes so that you become neutral to everything. And you don't have a strong preference for one pole over the other. You don't have a strong preference for north over south, east over west, left over right, hot over cold, up over down. The way to get that neutrality is to tolerate both of the extremes. And perceiving the universality of suffering, that's very interesting. Perceiving that there's suffering everywhere and everything is an important way of untying the heart knot. It's an important practice for untying the heart knot. Because why would you want to tie yourself to something that causes suffering? Everything is going to wind up causing suffering. So why tie to it? So then he gives specific examples of these things. striving for union with the actual self. Austerity is endowed with determination, enthusiasm, and clarity. Regulating how your mind, vitality, and senses interact. Solitude, celibacy, sobriety, and silence. Those are the key practices of yoga. Striving for union with the actual self. You won't want to define yourself by tie to anything else. The austerity is endowed with determination, enthusiasm, and clarity. That's the tolerance of the extremes. Regulating how your mind, vitality, and senses interact. So that's pranayama. And solitude. These are very key practices of yoga. Solitude, celibacy, sobriety, and silence. If you do those things, the heart knot dissolves. And the opposite of those things is how to tighten the heart knot. Finally, Bharata asked for examples of jnana. I'm sorry that it's so blurry. I don't know why it's so blurry. Aparanjana story. Could I please briefly state this one story? It's too long. But you can look up on my channel or search YouTube first. Bhāgavatam Swan Victikara, something like that. And you'll probably get it. It's one of our previous live streams that we did. 2 swans, Victikara, Bhāgavatam. Swan in the heart, Swan Lake, I don't know, something like that. Finally, Bharata asked for examples of jnana. Ṛṣabha replied, jnana revolves around nurturing your inquisitiveness and trying to increasingly eliminate unnecessary things from your life. So that's the basis of jnana. Jnana is like renunciation. That means you're going to nurture your inquisitiveness about who you are, or especially about what's real and what's not, what things are, and trying to increasingly eliminate unnecessary things from your life. That's one of the keys. It relies on ... being very interested in what is real. Effort to realize theoretical knowledge by direct, tangible experience. Wanting to cease defining yourself in reference to your body and circumstances, and therefore eliminating the things that limit the thing known as I. Meekness, equality, and peacefulness, and seeing my nature everywhere. Those are examples of how you try to eliminate unnecessary things from your life and try to become inquisitive. So this really is elimination of unnecessary things. Wanting to cease defining yourself in reference to your body and circumstances. And also this. Meekness, equality, and peacefulness. You don't need to be antagonistic. You don't need to be competitive. You don't need more possessions. The rest of it is inquisitiveness. All of these things, Ṛṣabha concluded, untie and dissolve the knot, the heart knot. Sometimes I write this quite late and I'm half asleep. Untie and dissolve the heart knot in a way that frees people from their karma and launches them to a condition in which no further effort is ever necessary. So that's great. Good thing we're doing that right now. Nothing else to do, really. You don't have to try to do clickbait, bells and whistles. You don't have to try to perform. Do a cartwheel, tell a joke, and just read the Bhāgavatam. That's enough. Now he says, now the conversation goes, I feel like he stops talking to the public and now he's really talking to his children. Because he's about to hand them the kingdom. He's about to leave and stop being a king. So in this section he wants to teach them how to lead, how to be leaders. When you become parents raising children, or teachers teaching students, out of compassion for my world, teach them what I have just taught you. Tale of the Citizen. Renee asks, how would you define meekness? It's not the opposite of greed and the opposite of arrogance. So this is interesting. This is a great paragraph. When you become parents raising children. This is also famous in Sanskrit. I can't remember it right now. Guru nasasyat, like pitaro nasasyat, unless you can. Oh wait, actually that didn't come yet. When you become parents raising children or teachers teaching students out of compassion for my world, teach them what I've just taught you. Yeah. Okay, I like the way I translated here puts that statement off a little bit. So let's see how I translated it. If they have trouble understanding, be patient with them. This is so nice. Ṛṣabha said, there's one person that listens to our stream named Ripple Drop. She should like this because sometimes I seem to be quite impatient with people. But Ṛṣabha is advising, if people have trouble understanding what you're teaching, be patient with them. Don't be frustrated. Be understanding. If they don't want to listen, don't give up trying to evoke their interest. Bharata asked, people are so obsessed with their ambitions, it seems they will never listen to advice that directs them away from those passions. Shouldn't we find some progressive way to encourage them in their passions? So, let me make sure you understand Bharata's question. Ṛṣabha just taught about this heart knot thing, right? Which is not very forgiving of any kind of materialism at all. So he's saying you should practice yoga, jnana, or bhakti, somehow or another, untie your heart knot so that you're not attached to sex and everything that comes with it, and the whole kind of life that you build upon that husband and wife bond. So that's like not going to appeal to anybody. That's going to appeal to like 1% of the population. Which might explain a couple of things. But so Bharata's question is that people are not interested in hearing that. People are very obsessed with their passions. Isn't there some way that we could help them, guide them, without having to give them this heavy-duty message? Isn't there some way that they can do their passions in a progressive way? Ṛṣabha became very grave. Listen to what he said, it's so intense. What kind of parent would lead their children to a cliff and push them off? People are obsessed with ambitions that will cause them pain and suffering. What kind of teacher would pat them on the back and applaud them for it? If you see a blind man wandering into a dangerous road, would you say, keep going, you're doing great? If you feel, this is the one that I was trying to quote before, if you feel incapable of helping your dependents realize that their ambitions cause them pain and suffering, you should step down from your position of leadership. No one should be a guru, a parent, guru or nasasyat. No one should be a guru, parent, guardian, god, or friend unless they can help their dependents escape the morbidity of their selfish ambitions. So that's really heavy. He just put the pedal to the metal. Bharata says, shouldn't we be a little bit more lenient with their material desires? Ṛṣabha says, would you want to encourage people that have material desires that cause them pain? What kind of kindness is that? And he says, if you feel that you can't help people realize that these desires are going to cause them pain, then instead of preaching them that they should go jump off a cliff and follow these desires, you should get yourself out of the position of being their leader. Because nobody should be a leader who's not able to teach these kind of things to people. That's what Ṛṣabha said. But now Bharata is not going to give up on his questioning because there's a whole lot of evidence that you can do it in the way that Bharata is suggesting as well. It's just that Ṛṣabha has come to the end of his active life, and now he's going to stress this transition into renunciation. But Bharata is going to ask again, the Vedas describe many paths of duty that allow people to progress spiritually without having to completely abandon their ambitions. Should we not embrace any of these? Teaching them the direct spiritual paths may be difficult, Ṛṣabha replied, because the reality of my existence is difficult to fathom. So, teach people to abandon irresponsibility and be faithful to their duties. So it's different. It's not that you teach people that you say, okay, you're doing great, your material desires are awesome, look at you, you're so lusty, that's so awesome. It's not like that, because then you're just telling the blind man to keep going into the road. But he says you can teach them to follow their duties and to fulfill their desires via dutiful paths. That is recommended. Ṛṣabha does embrace that and recommend that. And the reason he says that is because most people can't even see that I'm real. So you're going to say do bhakti to something that doesn't even seem to be real? Do jnana, quest and inquire to something that doesn't even seem to be real? It's not going to be relevant to anybody. So for most people, you encourage them to do their duties. So teach people to abandon irresponsibility and be faithful to their duties. My spiritual form is difficult to comprehend, but people can easily understand this. Duty is my heart, and I leave irresponsibility far behind my back. All of you are my children, so you come from my heart. So always be faithful to your duties. That's just a thing in Vedic culture. It's a saying that children are not born from sex. Children really, that's just the instrument that brings them into being. But the real thing that they're born from is love. Children are born from love. Children are born from the heart. And therefore, whether you're a biological child or not a biological child, it's really rather irrelevant, because the real cause of the childhood is not the blood, but the affection between the parents and the child. So that's why he says, you're my children, therefore you come from my heart. My heart is dharma, or duty, and adharma, or irresponsibility, is my back. So I really expect you guys to be faithful to your duty. That is what I just did for the past God knows how many years of my life. I just spent all this effort for so many years trying to teach people by example to fulfill your desires by doing duties, doing your duties and being responsible. I want you to do that too, because you're my children. When I'm gone, you keep doing it. Bharata asks, what is the essence of duty? Cooperate. Now Ṛṣabha replies, cooperate with everyone, benefit everyone, treat everyone with respect, seeing me in everyone. All of you must cooperate with each other peacefully and help your eldest brother Bharata as he supports and maintains the people of the world. Bharata asks, would you please give us specific advice about the most important way we should maintain and govern? Ṛṣabha replied, what the world needs most is intelligent people. That's what the world needs most. What the world needs most is intelligent people who have studied my wisdoms and understand how to teach it and apply it. The most important duty of a guardian or governor is to protect and nurture such people and to follow their instructions. What the world needs most is people that understand Vedic wisdom. So therefore, the most important duty of any guardian or governor is to help those people flourish and to follow their guidance. That's his advice for his kids who are about to become the rulers of the world. Then he gives this kind of poem, which gives like a hierarchy of what's more important than the other. Those who comprehend more are more precious and important. So that's the basic theme of his poem that he's going to bring up. The way that you would assess in the world what's more valuable than something else, the thing that has more sentience is more valuable, because it is sentience alone which is valuable. It's consciousness alone that's valuable. So the things that display or express more consciousness are more valuable. Thus, among all things, sentient beings are the most precious. Amongst sentient beings, insects are more precious than plants because they're more sentient. Animals are more precious than insects. Humans, the most precious of all animals. Still more precious than humans are supernatural beings. Still more are the celestials who serve the gods. Still more the demons. Still more the gods. Best of the gods is their king. Still better are Brahma's children, Daksha. Better still, Bhava. Better still is Brahma. Who's better is me. But better than me are the teachers. I am the soul of their soul. No one is equal to a teacher. I cannot even imagine any being more important than they are. When someone cares for a teacher, they care for me. When they feed a teacher with affection, I feel more satisfied than when I am fed in a Vedic sacrifice. Teachers always beautifully manifest my qualities in this world. In them we find the apex of realness, purity, equanimity. These are the qualities that you need to have to actually be a teacher. Just because you know math and you can teach 2 + 2 = 4 doesn't make you a teacher. A teacher has to have realness, practicality, purity, no compromise, equanimity, equalness towards everybody, restraint, self-control, truthfulness, affection. Teacher has to have affection, self-sacrifice, patience, and experienced wisdom. I am the master of paradise and of liberation, yet teachers ask nothing from me. They do not want anything because they enjoy my love. So actually, by that statement, what he's really saying is, you may know, if you're familiar with Indian culture, the concept of the Brahmana, and then the concept of the Vaishnava. The Vaishnava is a superior subset of Brahmana, and that's what he's mentioning here. The ultimate teacher is actually the Vaishnava. The Vaishnava is the one who has actually become engrossed in understanding bhakti, which is devotion. Now Bharata asks, what is the essence of what they teach? They teach, Ṛṣabha explained, that so what is the essence of what teachers teach? They teach, Ṛṣabha explained, that every animate being or inanimate object is my domain, and therefore everything and everyone is always worthy of your honor and respect. Nothing is mine, and nothing is somebody else, and nothing is nobody's. Everything is Vishnu's. Everything belongs and is produced from the Supreme Conscious Being. Therefore, every little thing is amazing, and every little thing deserves respect and honor. Seeing the world this way is the realest way to honor and respect me. It's much more real than just lighting an incense or lighting a candle. It's to actually see that the whole world is a presentation of God. It's a reference of God. It's a representation of God. And treating it that way. Everybody in it. That's real worship. Seeing the world this way is the realest way to honor and respect me. This point of view allows you to directly, truly perform spiritual acts with your body, words, and mind, and thus escape the great delusion that forms the noose of death. And that's what we got for this week. Next week, I'll be presenting to you Ṛṣabha's renunciation, which is a real Pandora's box of, like, I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's not disrespectful. I don't want to make a joke out of it, but it's like hijinks and chaos. The wild experiences of Ṛṣabha as a Avadhuta renunciate. That's coming next week. So let's see if there's any questions. Next week, what time next week? I'll be back in Japan. So keep an eye out for what time. I think it will be whatever time it is right now, subtract about 2 hours next week. Okay, guys. See you then.